Connotations is a collection of memories, observations, and tiny bits of historical naval lint served up by Dr. Lee Carno.
Well, the curtain rises and we find ourselves in Flushing Meadows Park, or so it was called before the World's Fair dominated, and I mean dominated, the landscape. I was just about 3/4 through my 19th year of life, and I needed slash wanted a job. This is not to say a first job. Oh no. I had been holding part-time jobs ever since reaching the Jewish age of adulthood, 13. At my bar mitzvah, Dad made it abundantly clear that collecting checks was not for my trivial enjoyment. Rather, the funds, I think about $180, was to be placed in a savings account at the Fordham Savings Bank. Not as what I wanted necessarily. By the way, Dick Clark was born in Mount Vernon, New York in 1929. So we grew up in a similar neighborhood, but he was more than a decade older. Dick Clark already had his job, but our paths would soon cross anyway. Just before I fall into the story, here's a reminder that you can participate, and I wish you would, in supporting my channel by clicking on the like, subscribe, and notification bell. It costs you nothing and assures that you won't miss any of the upcoming stories, and that YouTube will give this channel a bit more attention. Thanks. Moving right along, as we should. So what job did I have at the fair? And how did I get it? My father had a friend, unionized shop, that was to provide technical maintenance services, Local 3 of the IATSE. And Dad made passing mention of that to me. Passing mentions from my father was sort of taken as soft suggestions now, but rather more along the lines of a shared thought between myself and perhaps Joseph Stalin, although unlike Stalin, my dad did mean well. Okay then, I called Local 3 and was told to show up for what could be very loosely called a job fair at 6 a.m. in Brooklyn. Yup, Brooklyn. I'm a Bronx boy, with me residing in New Rochelle. Awake at 5:30 a.m., and off to Brooklyn I went, decked out in my finest suit. Yeah, the same suit. Okay, my only suit. I found myself in a second floor open meeting room, dusty old affair. About 50 folding chairs, and each occupied by a rotund, middle-aged fellow smoking cigars. Did I stand out? Of course not. Within 10 minutes, I had pretty much sized up the situation. Local 3 in Brooklyn had no live theaters, but 100 or more movie theaters. And these guys were all projectionists. They were looking for work in any of them. Now, my theater experience was broad from my New Rochelle high school days, but I had never run a projector. Never. Not even in school. I elected to terminate the pain early, but just before I got to the door, the guy calls the jobs out, yells, "Anyone here with theatrical lighting experience?" My hand went up so fast, fast and hard, it nearly took me off my feet. In my head, I hear another of Dad's motivational instructions. If anyone asks if you could do something, always say yes. You can read a book about it later. Joe Cano. So everyone else leaves and I stay for what I assume was an interview, but not much of an interview. Maybe 3 questions, like, was I really familiar with theater stuff? I answered affirmatively, and in my head, Stalin said, He approved. What I left a few minutes later with, I was the house lighting designer, technician, stagehand for the 1964 World's Fair. Go figure it. Dick Clark was coming ever closer, but he was unaware of it as well. My salary, not hourly, was $6,800 a year, but my work year only ran from April 1964 until September 64. What I didn't yet know was that my overtime would double that base salary. I was rich. Now, there'll be many more stories to come about my World Fair experiences, but none more meaningful, enlightening, and in the end joyous than the time shared with Dick Clark. It has been my kind of general experience that celebrities can display both the best and the worst of interpersonal qualities. One thing for sure, put them on the professional spot, throw a few curveballs, and you will quickly discover the inner true being. Not always nice, by the way. Dick Clark was brought in to a follow-up on a significant failing, the aquatic show. Think SeaWorld done even more badly, in a venue even knew existed, and it was doomed from the start. In any case, the venue closed by August, and Dick was booked to finish out the remainder of the year. A redo venue. Nope. The same now empty pool where swimmers and dolphins and seals did their best. I remember thinking I could still smell the dead fish that they were fed, but what a horrible haunting presented itself. I had only two stagehands to assist Dick at the stage level, and just myself to run all the lighting, and there was a shitload of lighting. As the show was packaged presentation, having only 2 days to prep was no big deal, I thought. I really needed to work on the thinking more, and the echo of my dad, "You can always get a book" speech was meant to carry me through. It nearly failed. No, actually, it did fail. But thanks to Dick and my ever optimistic perspective, yeah, okay. So I climbed into the heavens of the lighting booth, which is at least 80 feet away and about 30 feet up in the air, an old building, and I find a small lighting board that I would use for accent lighting during the shows. So far, so good. Then suddenly, in the lighting booth, seemed to have two other occupants, two massive dragons. Okay, not the fire-breathing kind, but they would later on. Lighting booths are all underlit. Does seem silly, doesn't it? And with no additional lighting, save for a 75-watt hanging over me, it quickly became apparent my dragons were ever more frightening than their story reversions. You see, the two massive carbon follow spots were apparently not off the shelf. They were built for purpose, probably around 1940, and thus shared little with anything in my experience or in my dad's mystical book. No manuals, no placards, no nothing. Two monster power switches on the floor and an access window soot black and opaque from use, and a box of carbon rods also on the floor. Well, 30 minutes before our first run through, I piled a few boards on the floor, execution not being a goal of mine, and began the highly scientific and professional approach of try something, kick a switch, try something else, kicked a switch again. And just when it all seemed destined for custard, I got an arc in one of them and then the other. Just one more little wrinkle. The brilliant folks who designed these spots, back around 39 or 40, assumed that there would be one operator for each. But me was all there was, and with the controls now too far away for me to use simultaneously, that same empty belly feeling arose yet again. I elected to test the Lee-Dick relationship, and it was then that I discovered the real Dick Clark. He immediately understood the problem, that I could fix it tomorrow with another operator, and we together came up with a spread spot approach. Flatten that out, with his two talent members staying ever so close, and to use the too often employed stage phrase, the show went on. After we closed that night's performance, I joined Dick on stage and he told me, quote, I was the man. I corrected him, and while I would never see him after the fair closed, I would never forget his caring and non-existent hubris. That Dick Clark was a mensch. Fade to black.